today is Kinship trainings for users. Oh. So this is what we're going to cover. So an introduction to Kinship, finding content and placing it in your model, browsing content on the Kinship website, adding your model to Kinship, and then viewing your model in Kinship. So, if you want to look at models you're working on, what can you see about them? So first of all, what is Kinship? So very briefly, it's a cloud-based solution for teams working in Revit. Focuses on three key areas: content management, project tracking, and analytics. Most of today will be on content management and downloading content. We'll have a little bit of looking at projects. And then it has features for users and administrators. And today we will be really going through how users will use Kinship. So I will say content or families or items when I talk about things that are items that are stored in Kinship. And it can be any one of these. It can be a component family, a system family, annotations and details, groups, either model or detail groups, drafting views, and sheets of drafting views and other 2D elements. So all these can be stored in Kinship, and all of these can be downloaded and placed in your model from Kinship. Now, a little bit of background on Kinship, on where content is stored within Kinship. We won't go into too much detail, but it does help to understand. So the library is kind of the place where approved content is placed. So this is the content that generally your BIM managers have said, this is what we recommend. And when you're doing searching, in general, things from the library come back first. We'll talk in more detail about ordering of results. But the library has the concept of approved and unapproved. So when you're searching, unapproved content does not appear in your search results. Only approved content will. And so only administrators can put content into the approved library. Regular members can upload content into the unapproved area. We're not going to cover that today, but it is possible, and then request that like an admin move it from the unapproved to the approved for you. But in general, administrators place content in the library. There is also lists. Lists are ways of organizing content in the library. And so if you had perhaps a lot of, like plumbing, and it's or things that are related to a particular vertical or particular sector, then you can place these in lists. So you could have perhaps all your healthcare in a list. And you can then use lists to narrow down your search when you're looking for something, looking for a family in the library. And I will show you how to do that. When we get to the demo, we'll look at that. As well as lists, we also have collections. So lists are a way of organizing content in the library. Collections are a separate thing from the library. So the collection has its own kind of copy. It's a separate copy of the family. And you can have, and just like you can have multiple lists, you can have multiple collections. And collections are another way of grouping content together. Whenever you add a model to Kinship, when Kinship is tracking the model, we will upload all the families in that model. So we kind of go through the model and we capture all the families. And these are stored with the model. Well, not with the model because we don't store the model, but they're stored in a separate place. And these are also searchable. So all of this is searchable with some rules that we'll talk about later. But it's not placed in the library. So, but you can go and find content that is in that's in other models by searching. Now, one of the things about collections is that they can be assigned to projects. So if you're working on a project and this collection is assigned to that project, then the contents in this collection will come back as top priority. So these will be, so like this thing here, which says this, you can read it, but it's a pump. So if you search from this model, this would be the first thing to come back when you said pump, because it's the collection is assigned to that project. So one other thing about both projects and collections is that they can be made private. So if it's private, that means that only administrators can see it, unless you happen to be working on that project. If you're working on it, then you can see it. Otherwise, you can't. Or if it's assigned to a project that you're working on.